Sarah Manning, a troubled young woman, witnesses a girl identical to her commit suicide. She seizes the chance to steal the stranger's identity and money, learning her name is Beth Childs. Seeing this as an opportunity to escape her problems, she decides to pretend to be Beth. Sarah discovers Beth was a police detective, but she was also under investigation for shooting a civilian. However, her deception becomes risky as Beth's partner, Art, notices her unusual behavior. Meanwhile, her boyfriend Paul grows suspicious of her sudden distance from him. Sarah tries her best to maintain balance between her two identities, posing as Beth while also taking care of her personal issues. But then, another lookalike named Katya appears. From her, Sarah realizes Beth is tied to a mysterious case involving identical women. While still posing as Beth, Sarah receives a call about Katya and learns of her death. This confirms Katya's warnings that someone is killing women who look like them. After Katya's funeral, Sarah discovers Beth's money is missing. Turns out Detective Art has taken it, fearing Beth might flee. With this, Sarah continues acting as Beth to reclaim it. Searching through Katya's belongings, Sarah finds a briefcase containing medical files and blood samples of several women identical to her. Following one address, she meets Alison, a suburban clone. Later, Sarah receives a call from Alison, who introduces her to Cosima, another clone who is a graduate student in revolutionary biology. The three of them begin their investigation and soon realize that someone is hunting them. Now, Sarah has Alison and Cosima, but soon Felix, her foster brother and closest friend, discovers her secret. Still posing as Beth, Sarah struggles to act as a detective, especially when Katya's body is found. Seeing her state, she panics, leaving fingerprints on the body which may expose her identity. Despite this, Cosima urges her to keep pretending to be Beth, as they can use her profession to closely uncover who is hunting them. Meanwhile, Alison teaches her to hold a gun. This soon proves to be useful as Sarah encounters an assassin hunting down her and the other clones. Sarah soon learns that the assassin is also one of the clones named Helena. She is tied to a religious cult that has a mission of hunting down clones. Using Beth's identity, Sarah investigates Helena with Art's help. However, things became complicated as she realized she had promised to see her daughter Kira that day. To help, Alison impersonates Sarah and meets with Kira. But even though she fooled Sarah's foster mother, Mrs. S, she failed to fool her daughter, Kira. At the same time, Helena infiltrates a police precinct. Using Beth's identity, she records a false confession about Maggie Chen, the woman Beth killed. When Sarah confronts Helena about this, she insists they share a special connection, which leaves Sarah trembling in confusion. After that encounter, Sarah is haunted by nightmares about being in an experiment. Thinking about this, she investigates and soon discovers that she once underwent a real neurological test while unconscious. With Cosima's help, they dig through the possible reasons behind their existence. On the other hand, Alison faces personal problems as her husband Donnie shows suspicious actions and secretive behavior, so she decides to install a nanny cam. However, Sarah nears being exposed once again when Paul also begins to suspect that Sarah is not Beth. Through their confrontation, Paul reveals that he is Beth's monitor, secretly assigned to watch over and report about her life as a clone to a shadowy organization that made them. This confirms Sarah's thought that their entire lives are actually under surveillance. Alison grows suspicious that her husband may be her monitor, so she interrogates him, but gets nothing. This makes her realize he may just be a bad husband after all. To maintain her appearance, Alison soon hosts a potluck where Sarah impersonates her, and Felix plays bartender, though a nosy neighbor named Ainsley grows suspicious of their actions. Cosima, on the other hand, grows close to a fellow scientist named Delphine and attends a lecture by Dr. Leakey, charismatic figure linked to the Neolution movement. Meanwhile, Sarah's ex-lover, Vic, tracks her down and creates chaos. This leads to another confrontation with Paul where he confirms his suspicion that Beth is another person. In the end, Alison reconciles with Donnie while Sarah reveals to Paul the whole truth about Beth committing suicide. After their confrontation, Sarah fears Paul will expose her, especially when his handler, Olivier, mentions a killer targeting clones. Meanwhile, Helena remains under the control of Tomas, the leader of their cult, who seems to be obsessing over Sarah. At a Neolution club, Sarah is captured by Oliver, but Helena quickly steps in, mutilating him and helping Sarah escape. Elsewhere, Cosima grows closer to Delphine, and through Dr. Leakey, who presents himself as a mentor, but also represents the powerful Dyad Institute. Through this, Cosima begins having questions about Dyad's connection to Neolution. Beth's fellow detectives continue their investigation when they uncover Sarah's fingerprints, realizing she is not Beth and putting her cover at risk. With Beth's colleagues, Art and Angela, discovering Sarah's true identity, the police also grow increasingly shockingly suspicious of her deception. At the same time, Dr. Leaky and the Neolutionists begin their search for the clones, so Paul, who supposedly works with them, is forced to secretly warn Sarah. With this, Sarah hides out with Felix. Amidst all these, Alison remains distracted by her own personal struggles, from her marital issues with Donnie to her nosy neighbor Ainsley, who seems to be watching her a little too closely. Elsewhere, Helena becomes more intrigued about Sarah when she learns that she has a daughter, deciding to target her instead. Believing she has a special connection with the child, she approaches her, and though Kira seems to trust her, she suddenly runs back towards Sarah and is suddenly hit by a car, leaving Sarah devastated. To their surprise, Kira miraculously survives the accident without a scratch, raising questions about her unusual biology. Racked with guilt, Helena is imprisoned by Thomas, but secretly calls Sarah for help. Meanwhile, Alison continues to spiral through her personal issues, though Felix manages to support her, while Cosima clashes with Delphine after discovering that she reports everything she knows to Dr. Leaky, causing a strain on her trust in her. Sarah soon meets with Leaky, who gaslights her into believing Helena is a bad person, so she will hand her over to him. But instead, Sarah saves Helena from Tomas, even if she still does not fully trust her. Back home, Mrs. S introduces Sarah to Amelia, her birth mother, who reveals that Sarah and Helena are actually twin sisters born for a secret experiment. After meeting Sarah, Amelia warns her about Mrs. S, but before she can even react, Helena impersonates Sarah and kills Amelia, accusing her of betrayal. With this, Sarah is forced to shoot Helena. Meanwhile, Alison faces an intervention organized by her husband, but her paranoia leads her to accuse her neighbor Ainsley of being her monitor. So when an accident strikes Ainsley, Alison lets her die, thinking she has freed herself from surveillance. Elsewhere, Cosima discovers she is sick and begins decoding the clone's DNA, revealing they are patented creations and artifacts, more likely possessions instead of people. Meanwhile, Dr. Leaky enlists Rachel, another clone who works with Dyad. She convinces her to try to recruit Sarah in exchange for her safety, but Sarah refuses their offer. However, her decision comes with a cost. When she returns home, she finds their home ransacked and discovers both Kira and Mrs. S gone. The Dyad operatives chase Sarah through the pouring rain. When they corner her in a diner, two men force her to face Rachel, but a sudden shootout erupts, giving Sarah a chance to escape through the bathroom wall. Desperate, she searches for Felix at a gay bar and tells him Mrs. S and Kira have been taken. She then reaches out to Paul, who warns her about Dyad's party. Meanwhile, Cosima grows closer to Delphine despite her distrust, while Alison contacts her dealer Ramon to arm Felix. Determined to rescue Kira, Sarah impersonates Cosima and infiltrates Dyad. However, when she confronts Rachel, she claims she doesn't have Kira. In a fit of rage, Sarah attacks her and escapes with Paul's reluctant help. Returning to Art, Sarah learns that Kira was actually taken by Helena's cult, the Prolethians. Elsewhere, Helena barely survives her gunshot, while Kira is revealed to be in Prolethian custody, eerily photographed. Thanks to her reversed organs, Helena miraculously survives her wound, but she soon falls back into the hands of the Prolethians. Their leader, Henrik Johansson, discovers her fertility and views it as the key to their plans. Meanwhile, Sarah continues her search for Kira, only to learn that Mrs. S staged their disappearance to test if Sarah could truly be trusted with her daughter. Soon, they discover that their old friends, Barry and Brenda, betrayed them to the Prolethians. With that, Sarah and Mrs. S are forced to kill their former allies before escaping with Kira and Felix. Elsewhere, Alison is consumed with guilt over Ainsley's death. She confesses to Felix and becomes convinced Donnie is her monitor, later confirming her suspicions when she catches him reporting directly to Dr. Leaky. Meanwhile, at Dyad, Cosima is granted her own lab, though Rachel warns her that Sarah's fertility, unlike that of other clones, remains the true mystery. When Daniel, Rachel's monitor, arrives at Barry and Brenda's home, he only finds their dead bodies. This pushes Henrik to focus on Helena, whom he binds to his family through a disturbing wedding-like ritual. Elsewhere, Mrs. S, Sarah, Felix, and Kira hide in a secluded cottage. With Kira's quick thinking, they gather supplies and soon encounter Cal, Sarah's ex-lover, and Kira's father, who agrees to let them stay. At Dyad, Cosima and Delphine uncover video journals of Jennifer Fitzsimmons, who suffered the same illness Cosima now faces. Meanwhile, Alison, still unstable, clashes with Donnie and grows suspicious of Detective Angela. During her community musical, she collapses from her pills and alcohol intake. As days pass, Cal grows closer to Sarah, but Daniel eventually tracks them down. He abducts Sarah and forces her to drive the car, but then a truck suddenly slams into them. Sarah survives the car crash and goes into hiding with Cal and Kira in a camper. Using Daniel's phone, she tricks Rachel into thinking she was talking to Daniel, allowing her to break into Rachel's apartment. There, she uncovers the story of Rachel's foster family, the Duncans, family of scientists tied to Project Leda. Daniel ambushes Sarah, but Helena arrives just in time, killing him and saving Sarah. As it turns out, Helena had escaped the Prolethians after Henrik's daughter, Gracie, tried to kill her. Although the lab was destroyed in the process, Henrik soon reveals that he has already created a new one using Helena. Meanwhile, Alison recovers in rehab after her collapse, struggling with Donnie's betrayal but still choosing to stay for their children's sake. Mrs. S also reconnects with Carlton, an old ally who seems to know about Sarah's origins. When investigators and Dr. Leakey arrive at Rachel's apartment, they find it covered in blood. Rachel admits that Daniel was loyal to Leakey, while Leakey claims Daniel also served Rachel. They realize Helena is responsible for the attack, recognizing her handiwork. With Daniel gone, Rachel appoints Paul as her new monitor and orders him to stop a critical treatment for Cosima until Sarah surrenders. Meanwhile, Helena stays on Felix's couch. Sarah insists Felix also respect Helena as a sister and promises to find her a safer place. Delphine brings Cosima's stem cell test results that are originally meant for Leakey. At his office, they learn the original genetic data for the clones was lost, but Leakey still gives Cosima an experimental injection as a gesture of goodwill. Art soon shelters Helena and learns about her past, while in the countryside, Cal and Kira continue evading the police. Sarah and Helena camp together, with Sarah trying to extract information about their destination and the whereabouts of Ethan Duncan. Helena fears Sarah might abandon her and wonders if she can truly bear a child like Sarah, all while attempting to normalize their relationship as sisters rather than killer and victim. Meanwhile, Paul tracks them down. At Dyad, Cosima continues her treatment under Delphine's watch. A new technician, Scott, also discovers markers that confirm the existence of clones. Alison, on the other hand, struggles in rehab, with her husband Donnie monitoring her, and Vic encouraging her to open up. Sarah soon uncovers records from the Cold River Institute hidden in a church, linking the location to the Duncans. Helena is arrested after a fight breaks out at a bar, and Gracie reveals that Henrik successfully froze some of Helena's eggs, giving her a potential for motherhood. Elsewhere, Ethan explains how he sheltered Rachel in the past and regrets Dyad's manipulations, describing how Leakey interfered with their lives. While Alison remains in rehab, she begins to trust Vic, confiding in him about the truth behind Onsley's death. However, Vic betrays her, calling a detective to expose her secret. Alarmed, Alison contacts Felix for help. Meanwhile, Sarah and Mrs. S break into the Duncan home to retrieve a floppy disk containing crucial information. Soon, Cosima receives a stem cell treatment, but she learns that it was taken from Kira's tooth without her permission, which enrages her. When a family day at the rehab center takes place, Sarah impersonates Alison while she helps Felix take care of Vic. They end up knocking him unconscious and hiding him from the staff and police. For Kira's safety, Mrs. S negotiates with Dyad, offering the disc in exchange, but Paul later reveals that Helena has been taken by the Prolethians. Unexpectedly, Donnie arrives and confronts Leakey about the clone program. During the argument, the gun accidentally fires, tragically killing Dr. Leakey. Another clone named Tony enters the story, rushing his friend Sammy, who has been shot, to a warehouse. Before dying, Sammy leaves a message for Beth. Tony tries calling Beth's phone, but Detective Art, her former partner, answers and redirects him to Felix. Tony soon reveals that he's a transgender clone of Sarah. Sarah explains her connection to Beth, and Tony delivers Sammy's final words. "Keep the faith. Paul's like me, he's on it. He's a ghost." Meanwhile, Ethan Duncan decides to stay with Mrs. S along with Sarah and Kira, while Cosima and Delphine work together to extract stem cells from Kira's tooth for Cosima's treatment. Elsewhere, Alison discovers Donnie drunk and confessing that he killed Dr. Leakey, hiding the body in their garage. At Dyad, Rachel promotes Delphine as Leakey's replacement and recruits Ethan to develop a proper cure. Later, Cosima reveals her clone code 324B21, but suddenly collapses, coughing up blood, signaling the urgency of her condition. Alison and Donnie bury Dr. Leakey's body together, and this unexpectedly brings them closer. Meanwhile, Helena is returned to the Johansson farm where the cult members reside and is forced to serve as a surrogate for clone embryos. Henrik implants embryos into both Helena and Gracie. While Helena remains composed, Gracie is shocked to learn she is carrying Helena's children. Henrik asserts control over the two women, but Helena attempts to escape with Gracie. With this, Henrik knocks Helena down, determined to gain control over their pregnancies. Mark, a Prolethian soldier, objects, but Helena fights back, freeing Gracie and ultimately torturing Henrik before leaving the farm. At the same time, Delphine and Rachel continue treating Cosima using stem cells from Kira, as her condition becomes worse. Meanwhile, Ethan is still striving to develop a proper cure for Cosima. Strangely, Sarah is soon captured by Dyad and taken to their facility, where Dr. Neolution attempts to harvest her eggs. She insists on seeing Kira, who is also in the facility, but isn't held captive. Sensing danger, Kira cleverly accesses a nurse's phone to alert the others. Meanwhile, Rachel replaces Delphine in her position and steps in to oversee Cosima's treatment. Though Cosima soon receives a cryptic email instructing her to act, Sarah manages to stop Rachel by using a fire fire extinguisher, and a flying pencil. With help from Marion, a high-ranking ally coordinating Operation Save the Clones, Sarah successfully rescues Kira. The clones soon gather at Felix's loft, sharing a moment of joy. But just as Helena attempts to leave, several mysterious men appear and capture her. Marion then explains the existence of a sole surviving clone from a previous failed experiment, named Charlotte. She also reveals Dyad's military ties, which include male clones like Mark. Elsewhere, Helena dreams of a baby shower with Sarah, Alison, Cosima, Felix, and Kira, but wakes abruptly in a crate with a talking scorpion, realizing she is being tested. Meanwhile, Sarah, Felix, and Kira are on a beach, discussing male clones and Marion Bowles, a topside operative coordinating clone operations. Delphine decides to introduce Sarah to Marion, bringing her to his mansion, where they meet Rudy, a Castor male clone. Tension rises as Rudy reveals personal details about Sarah's life and warns her to keep track of her sisters. Sarah soon learns that Helena is missing, prompting her to call Felix and regroup at Mrs. S's home. At the same time, Alison and Donnie are struggling with their marriage, and Cosima continues to battle with her illness, while Delphine temporarily takes over Rachel's duties at Dyad. To uncover more about the topside plans, Sarah impersonates Rachel to meet Ferdinand, a topside investigator. From him, she learns about Helsinki, a plan for the mass termination of clones. In the end, Helena is moved out of the crate by Castor soldiers. At Dyad, Dr. Neolution inspects the cell where Rudy escaped. Paul soon reveals himself as their military handler, testing the Castor clones for neurological glitches. Meanwhile, Cal buys an apartment for Sarah and Kira, hoping to give them stability. But Sarah remains preoccupied with the ongoing clone crisis. While Cosima continues recovering, her lab partner Scott assists her. Together, they meet Dr. Neolution, who informs them that all original clone genome data has been lost. At the Castor military base, Helena remains imprisoned by Castor soldiers. She suffers torture until Dr. Virginia Coady, the program's commander, discovers her pregnancy. This stops the abuse, but Coady manipulates her, claiming Sarah betrayed her. Back at Felix's loft, where Sarah and Kira are staying, Rudy breaks in and threatens Kira to pressure Sarah for information about Ethan Duncan's genetic material. Cal arrives unexpectedly and discovers Seth, who was supposed to guard the door. However, Seth suffers a neurological glitch. Rudy is forced to kill his glitching brother Seth, leaving Sarah and Felix to quickly hide the body. However, Art soon discovers it and reluctantly agrees to let Cosima and Scott dissect Seth's brain. Their findings soon confirm that the Castor clones suffer from a severe neurological defect. To secure their future, Alison and Donnie expand Ramon's drug business, using soap as cover and marketing, even as Alison campaigns for school trustee. Meanwhile, back at the Castor base, Paul clashes with Dr. Coady over Seth's death. Their attention shifts to Helena, still imprisoned, whose DNA shows no signs of the defect. At the same time, Sarah and Art follow leads about the Johansons, where they meet Alexis, a former cult member, and Willard Finch, Henrik's old associate. Meanwhile, Gracie has married Mark, who seeks out Finch's hidden crate. Cosima then discovers that both the Leda and Castor clones share identical DNA segments. This revelation drives Sarah to confront Mark, only for Bonnie Johansson to ambush them and shoot him. Sarah helps Mark escape from Bonnie's ambush, tending to his wounds and pressing him for Helena's location. However, Mark admits he knows very little. Meanwhile, at the Castor base, Helena deliberately injures herself to get into the infirmary, where she discovers Parsons, another clone, mutilated for experiments. Elsewhere, Alison and Donnie's drug-dealing scheme backfires when an enforcer confronts them. Still, they manage to recover by finding a new supplier who happens to be Alison's old high school flame, Jason Kellerman. Cosima and Scott continue studying the Johanssons' notes, but they soon realize the stolen Castor samples were secretly used to create a child. Meanwhile, Gracie suffers a miscarriage, prompting Bonnie to banish her for ruining the family's legacy. At the graveyard, Sarah uncovers Henrik's lost son, but Rudy appears, seizing the coffin. Reunited with Mark, Rudy warns that Castor leaves no loose ends, which puts Sarah in grave danger. Helena starts resenting Sarah, believing her sister deceived her, but soon she spots Sarah in a neighboring cell. Sarah denies the accusation, yet Helena remains cold. Meanwhile, Dr. Coady uses Sarah's blood work for research, while Mark, now exposed, is forced to log his intimate contacts. Elsewhere, Cosima goes on a date with a holistic healer named Shay, unaware that someone is secretly taking photos of them. Gracie, who was rejected by her family after miscarrying, seeks refuge with Felix and Mrs. S, who take her in despite their growing distrust. Back at the Castor base, Paul warns Sarah not to interfere anymore, but she soon uncovers that the Castor soldiers are deliberately infecting women. She confirms this through Patty and Gracie's red eyes. Determined, Sarah and Helena start planning an escape, secretly smuggling tools into their cells. However, Helena seizes her chance and escapes alone, leaving Sarah behind. Outside, she nurses her grudge, convinced Sarah betrayed her, while Castor soldiers scramble to hunt her down. Sarah, still trapped in her cell, begins hallucinating after being injected with Rudy's blood. realizing too late that Coady is experimenting on her. Meanwhile, Paul discovers that Coady is actually exploiting the Castor defect to sterilize women. Determined to stop her, he starts gathering evidence. At Dyad, Cosima reconnects with Delphine, who urges her to study Gracie's genetic link to the Castor illness. Felix, on the other hand, grows desperate and pressures Rachel for answers about Sarah. Elsewhere, Alison and Donnie continue laundering drug money, using Alison's mother's shop as their front. Helena escapes into the desert, but finds herself haunted by guilt for abandoning Sarah. Back at the Castor base, Sarah's condition worsens. Paul soon discovers that Cody's plans are actually much worse than he thought. With this, he confronts her and places her under arrest. In the process, he also discovers that Sarah is immune to the pathogen, making her even more valuable to Coady. Refusing to let her succeed, Paul makes the ultimate sacrifice. He detonates a grenade inside the lab, destroying everything and giving Sarah a chance to run. She escapes through a tunnel, where she finally reunites with Helena. Sarah and Helena escape the Castor compound together, hiding in a bar while waiting for Benjamin, Mrs. S's trusted associate, to pick them up. But instead, Mrs. S herself arrives, leading to a tense confrontation with Helena. Mrs. S admits she traded Helena to Castor, but only to protect Sarah and Kira. With heartfelt regret, she apologizes. Though wounded by the betrayal, Helena forgives her. Elsewhere, Alison struggles to balance her school campaign, her mother's constant criticism, and the dangerous drug business she runs with Donnie and Jason. Trouble strikes when an envelope mix-up with dealer Pouchy nearly costs Donnie his life, but Alison quickly switches the envelopes to save him. Meanwhile, at school, Cosima is mistaken for Alison and forced to fill in during her campaign speech. But just in time, Alison arrives to deliver a heartfelt address about family, winning over the crowd. Connie, unimpressed, signs over Bubbles, their new business venture, but plants doubt about Alison's marriage. At the same time, Cosima hides her worsening illness from Delphine, even going so far as to use Alison's urine sample instead of her own. Meanwhile, at Dyad, Scott secretly helps Rachel decode Duncan's book. Delphine meets Crystal Goderich, another clone who managed to survive an attack from the Castor brothers, though she lost her monitor in the process. Elsewhere, Coady speaks with Benjamin, warning him that without the original genome, the Castor line will eventually die. At Dyad, Delphine grows concerned for Rachel, who is quietly recovering despite being officially reported dead to Topside. Meanwhile, Cosima hides both her worsening illness and Duncan's book from Delphine. But then, Rudy corners Scott, intimidating him into handing the book over. Sarah and Felix scheme to steal Crystal's identity for Rachel, who demonstrates her ability to decode the book. In another corner, Helena bonds unexpectedly with Donnie and Alison, even hiding her harvested eggs inside their soap shop. But trouble brews when Jason suddenly kisses Alison, provoking Donnie's anger. In the end, Dr. Neolution swaps Rachel with Crystal, secretly aiding Rachel and a mysterious woman. Sarah, Mrs. S, and Felix set out together to track down the original Castor. Along the way, Mrs. S reconnects with old allies, including Terry, who manages to decode some of Duncan's hidden notes. But their search is interrupted when Ferdinand, a Neolution assassin, appears and tortures Terry for information. In the end, Sarah and Mrs. S are left with only a single lead, the name Kendall Malone. Meanwhile, Helena and Donnie are forced to deal with the drug lord Pouchy, who has seized the nitrogen tank containing Helena's stolen embryos. When Pouchy's niece threatens Donnie and his children, Helena acts by brutally slaughtering his crew. With this, she successfully reclaims both the embryos and a stash of cash. At Dyad, suspicions fall on Shay as a possible Castor spy, but Delphine and Cosima soon discover the real betrayer is Gracie, who acted out of loyalty to Mark. Finally, following Terry's trail, Sarah and Mrs. S uncover the truth. They soon find out that Kendall Malone is actually Mrs. S's estranged mother, who is also a chimera, the original source of both Castor and Leda DNA. Rachel wakes in a lavish new lab, where doctors prepare her for an artificial eye. At the same time, Mrs. S and Sarah hide Kendall inside a secured biocontainment lab with Scott's help. But Coady, now working with Rudy, plots to steal Kendall and harvest her DNA. Under Cody's orders, Rudy targets Helena, believing she is the easiest to reach among the clones, but Helena and Donnie anticipate his move. Helena fights him head-on and kills him. That same day, Alison secures her election victory. Meanwhile, at Dyad, Delphine learns from Dr. Neolution that Neolution secretly controls both Dyad and Topside. Neolution tries to infect her with a parasitic worm, but Delphine kills him before he succeeds. With his dying breath, he warns her she won't live long. Sure enough, Delphine is ambushed in a parking garage and fatally shot by an assassin. Finally, Rachel is revealed alive alongside her mother, Susan Duncan, while Sarah reunites with Kira. With the secrets exposed, Sarah, Mrs. S, and Kira retreat to Iceland to hide. But after only 2 months, Neolution operatives track them down. Looking back, Beth once investigated a gruesome case involving a mutilated victim whose cheek DNA appeared targeted by a Neolution body mod group. She was tipped off by a mysterious hacker known as MK to pursue the case. Around this time, Beth's life began to unravel. As her marriage grew cold, she relied on pills, and she leaned more on her partner, Art. One night at Club Neolution, Beth witnessed grotesque biohacking firsthand, including a live worm being pulled from a victim's cheek, which is clear evidence that Neolution's experiments were real. During the chaos, she got into a violent altercation and, while fleeing, accidentally shot someone. Desperate, she turned to Art for help, and together they created a cover story. Back in the present, Art contacts Sarah to warn her that Neolution has located Kendall and is moving to take her. With danger closing in, the clones are once again forced to run, while Beth's investigation makes it clear that Neolution's reach extends into both the police and cult circles. After Neolution tracks Sarah along with Kendall and her family, they escape to England, then return to Toronto, where they hide in a basement safe house beneath the Rabbit Hole Comics, secretly funded by Alison and Donnie. Scott and Cosima set up a lab there to work on a cure using Kendall's genome. The sisters also dig into Beth's last investigation of Neolution, uncovering footage of a victim with a worm pulled from his cheek. Sarah later meets Dizzy, a contact who directs her to a meeting and connects her with MK. Meanwhile, Cosima discovers that both Seth and Gracie's brains contained a misfolded protein. Soon after, Sarah is ambushed by paramedics Frank and Roxy, but they retreat after realizing she isn't their target. Back at the safe house, Mrs. S discovers an implant moving inside Sarah's cheek. Rachel is recovering with young Charlotte and Ira, a calm Castor clone who also serves as her doctor. Charlotte, cloned after Rachel, deeply frustrates her, while their caretaker Susan Duncan reveals she is alive and explains Neolution's true goal, which is to control human evolution and engineer the perfect human. Meanwhile, in Toronto, Sarah continues struggling with the Neolution implant embedded in her cheek. After inspection, Cosima and Scott conclude it is both organic and mechanical, making its removal quite fatal. To learn more, Alison and Donnie dig up Dr. Leakey's corpse, where they discover the same implant hidden in his cheek as well. Determined to find answers, Sarah tracks its origin to a Toronto dental clinic. There, a nurse tricks her into believing the device could kill her if she tries to remove it. But before she can be captured, Ferdinand suddenly arrives and kills her. He also delivers shocking news, revealing that Susan Duncan is still alive. MK is revealed to be a mysterious clone living in hiding. She spends her days setting traps, researching Dyad, and mourning her lost friend, Nikki. Eventually, she discloses her real identity as Vera Suominen, a survivor of the Helsinki Purge. Meanwhile, Mrs. S and Benjamin prepare a safe house for Ferdinand. There, Ferdinand reveals the truth about Susan Duncan, explaining she may be the key to removing the implant stuck in Sarah's cheek. Aside from that, he also mentions that Rachel needs rescuing, showing them a message from Rachel herself saying, "Susan Duncan is alive, help." Elsewhere, Cosima and Scott examine Dr. Leakey's corpse, attempting to study the bot found in his cheek. Though unalive, they confirm it remains dangerous. At the same time, Alison, Donnie, and Felix infiltrate LifeSpring Fertility, run by Dr. Bosch, which secretly promotes genetically enhanced children under the name BrightBorn. Meanwhile, Helena realizes she has overstayed with Alison and Donnie, so she decides it is time to leave and find her own path. Later, MK lures Ferdinand into a trap, exposing his role in the Helsinki massacre and draining his fortune. However, Sarah stops her, convincing her that Ferdinand may still be useful to them. While infiltrating BrightBorn, Cosima, Alison, and Donnie are quickly noticed by the director, Evie Cho. Susan Duncan also arrives, confusing the situation as she struggles to tell the clones apart, giving Cosima the chance to slip deeper inside. There, Cosima uncovers the truth about BrightBorn's operations. The babies diagnosed with BP syndrome are secretly removed from their mothers. Susan urges Cosima to join her, arguing that with Kendall's DNA, they could achieve a true scientific breakthrough. Meanwhile, Crystal, still convinced Dyad is tied to stem cell cosmetics, sneaks into BrightBorn as well. Mistaking Donnie for a staff member, she attacks him before suddenly noticing Ira, which leaves her rattled. Elsewhere, a Neolution detective named Martin warns Art to stay away from Alison as she is linked to past drug crimes. At the same time, Sarah clashes with Felix over his new sister, Adele, but her DNA test proves to be genuine, which only fuels her anger more. Inside a room, Susan examines Ira despite his protests that he is fine. Then, suddenly, a flashback reveals Beth once infiltrated BrightBorn and confronted Susan at gunpoint, but she ultimately spared her life. In the present, Sarah and Cosima think of a way to handle Susan. They consider trading Kendall's DNA in exchange for removing Sarah's implant. However, Cosima devises a loophole, offering only Kendall's leukemia cells to her. Just as an agreement seems possible, tragedy strikes when Kendall is abducted. In desperation, Sarah destroys all the DNA samples to keep them from falling into enemy hands. Cosima prepares to surrender her research to BrightBorn, but Evie stops her, revealing her coup against Susan. She admits Beth was manipulated into targeting Susan years earlier. Meanwhile, Kendall is executed by Martin, who burns her body to ash flash, erasing all genetic traces. Just after Kendall's death, Evie delivers another devastating blow as she tells Cosima that Delphine is dead. Finally, a flashback revisits Beth's last day. Bloodied from attacking Evie, she realizes she was deceived into believing Susan led Neolution. Filled with guilt, Beth walks toward the train, where she chose to end her life. While Rachel is still recovering from her injuries, Susan asks for her support as Evie Cho has already declared herself the new leader of Neolution, rendering Susan obsolete and announcing the end of Project Leda, claiming the clones will eventually die out. Meanwhile, Sarah and Mrs. S grieve Kendall's death, which only heightens tension between them. At the same time, Cosima and Scott are devastated after losing all their research in exchange for Sarah's bot removal. Cosima even considers implanting it into herself, but her despair shifts when Felix calls with news, saying Crystal saw Delphine alive after the shooting. Elsewhere, Martin pressures Alison into turning Donnie into the authorities. While Sarah, who seems to be haunted by Beth's memories, numbs herself with reckless partying, Felix finds her on a bridge and pulls her back. Then, suddenly, MK reappears, giving Kira a cryptic warning. Donnie ends up in jail, where a large inmate with a Neolution tattoo threatens him, making it clear Evie orchestrated everything. Alison visits him with Adele, who agrees to act as his lawyer, though it becomes obvious that Neolution's influence extends everywhere. Meanwhile, Sarah, Cosima, and Kira receive a message from MK. She apologizes for staying hidden, then reveals she hacked a server and discovered Evie dismantling Project Leda. She also helps them contact Susan. This allows Susan to connect with Cosima and Scott, where they realize they can replicate Kendall's genome by using Sarah's eggs with Ira's sperm. At the same time, Mrs. S prepares for a confrontation with Martin, who pressures Alison to hand over Sarah in exchange for Donnie's release. Instead, Alison sides with her friends, helping them lure Martin into a trap. With this, Donnie is freed while Mrs. S personally kills Martin. With a plan now in motion, Cosima travels to Susan's remote location carrying Sarah's eggs, hopeful of finally finding a cure. Yet Rachel continues to be haunted by strange visions, most vividly of a mysterious man and a swan. Rachel and Ira take refuge in a hotel, though Rachel continues to experience her visions of an unfamiliar place. Meanwhile, Helena survives alone in the wilderness, hunting deer to stay alive. Sarah and Felix soon meet with Rachel and Ira to discuss BrightBorn's latest bot implant. They learn that two mothers managed to escape the program, and they decide to set out and track them down. With Art's help, Sarah locates them. The women are named Tabitha and Kendra. At a women's shelter, they discover Tabitha already dead, while Kendra has vanished. When they finally find her, she is hiding with her newborn baby, who is blind. It is then revealed that both mothers filmed BrightBorn doctors euthanizing an unfit infant. Sarah vows to keep Kendra safe, but Rachel manipulates her into handing over the incriminating footage. Rachel then secretly records Evie Cho confessing to the crime. The footage leaks and destroys Evie's press conference, dismantling her public image. Later, Rachel realizes the visions she has been seeing are connected to Susan's location. At the same time, Delphine is revealed to be alive, secretly working from a remote cabin all along. The mystery behind Delphine's shooting is finally revealed. As it turns out, it was Martin who pulled the trigger. But before completing the act, Dr. Van Leer, Evie's former right-hand man, arrives with paramedics and evacuates her to safety. Delphine later wakes up on an island where she meets a mysterious white-bearded figure known as the Messenger, connected to Neolution's leader, P.T. Westmorland. Meanwhile, in the present, Evie faces her downfall as the Neolution board removes her, replacing her with Susan. Rachel, however, begins plotting her own rise, persuading the board to restart cloning and integrate it with Neolution's bot technology. Crystal uncovers fragments of the truth but misinterprets them as a feud between beauty companies. On the island, Susan begins planning a new clone initiative, but when she refuses to give up control, Rachel stabs her. Sarah intervenes but is injured during the struggle. Sarah finds herself stranded on the island, narrowly escaping a feral man's attack. However, she is soon hunted by armed men from Revival, a secretive off-grid community led by P.T. Westmorland. Meanwhile, Cosima wakes up in a cabin and meets Mud, who explains that Revival's mission is to extend human life. Cosima reunites with Charlotte, learns that Susan and Rachel are staying at P.T.'s mansion, and later has a secret reunion with Delphine, who hides the Leda cure from Revival. Back in Toronto, Felix and Art search for Mrs. S and Kira, but their investigation becomes complicated when Art's new partner, Detective Maddie Enger, reveals her Neolution ties by threatening his daughter. Elsewhere, Helena remains on the run from Neolution while Alison and Donnie attempt to protect her, but Alison is soon captured, and Helena is gravely wounded while trying to save Donnie. At Revival, Rachel establishes her control over the people, promising the villagers they will drink from the fountain first. That night, Cosima secures the cure but stays behind for further research. While Sarah attempts to flee, she is captured by Rachel's guards and tranquilized before she can get far. Sarah wakes up at Dyad, only to realize she is now under Rachel's control. To reassure her, Ferdinand shows video calls with Alison, Cosima, and Kira, but this only confirms how much power Rachel holds over them. Rachel then negotiates, promising Kira a normal life as long as she comes in for regular checkups. Sarah does not approve, but there is little she can do. Meanwhile, Alison and Donnie are pressured to reveal Helena's location. At the hospital, Helena miraculously begins healing from a severe wound to one of her unborn twins, unsettling the doctors. Sarah and her family plan Kira's rescue from Dyad, and with MK's help, they manage to succeed. But Kira soon rebels, believing she is safer back at Dyad. In the aftermath, Ferdinand hunts down MK and kills her in cold blood as revenge. Alison begins having flashbacks of happy moments with Donnie and their friends, but in reality, she is being interrogated about Helena's whereabouts and her worth as a clone. At the church fall fair, Alison struggles with jealousy, relapses into pills and alcohol, and masks her despair by lashing out. Meanwhile, investigators raid their house and start digging in the garage, dangerously close to where Donnie buried Dr. Leakey's body. To protect her family, Alison contacts Rachel, sending her Leakey's head as a warning. She threatens to expose everything unless Rachel shields her. So instead of arresting her, Rachel arranges to cover up the crime. For the first time, Alison feels she has truly contributed, but she remains shaken, so she admits to Donnie that she needs time away to rediscover herself. At Revival, Susan wakes to find that PT's has saved her life through an experiment. There, she reunites with Ira. Meanwhile, Charlotte discovers a human-like tooth in the forest and hears terrifying roars. Though the guards insist it's only a bear, Cosima grows suspicious. With Mud's help, she soon uncovers that PT secretly lives on dialysis and that a deformed, violent man is hidden in the woods. Back in Toronto, Sarah clashes with Kira after the incident at Dyad. Kira insists that Rachel never hurts her. Troubled, Sarah seeks out Helena, who is hiding in a convent. Helena explains that Kira feels isolated because of her gift to sense the other clones. Soon after, Sarah and Mrs. S infiltrate a psychiatric facility by posing as staff. There, they find Virginia Coady locked away and heavily sedated. Coady reveals that years ago, she, Susan Duncan, and PT Westmorland conducted dangerous human experiments. One experiment went wrong, producing a violent, disfigured man. Before they can press further, a staff member approaches, forcing Coady to help them escape. After that, Mrs. S dispatches Felix and Adele to Switzerland to trace Neolution's secret financial network. Cosima remains trapped on the island, where she learns about Giannis, the deformed man created through early Neolution experiments and chained deep in the woods. Using the tooth Charlotte discovered, she examines Giannis's DNA and realizes he carries the key to human longevity. Disturbingly, Giannis and Kira share similar genetic traits, which is why Rachel continues grooming Kira, believing her healing abilities are vital for Neolution's plans. Rachel soon reports to Westmorland that 1,300 surrogates are prepared, revealing his intention to harvest Kira's eggs to create a new generation of clones. Meanwhile, Kira confides in Sarah that she has a special gift. She can sense the other clones. Back at the comic shop, Scott and his friend Hell Wizard investigate Westmorland's history. They begin to suspect the man claiming to be PT Westmorland may not be the same figure from Victorian times. Back in the forest, Giannis breaks free, kills a guard, and storms to the mansion. When he confronts Westmorland, however, the old man has him killed. Afterwards, Cosima is also locked up in a cell as punishment for questioning his brutal experiments. Elsewhere, Crystal and her friend Bree film a beauty video, but Bree's hair suddenly begins falling out. Convinced they've been duped by a beauty brand, they seek Scott's help at the comic shop. Meanwhile, Kira pretends to be sick to avoid Dyad's plans to harvest her eggs. At the same time, Felix and Adele trace Neolution's hidden funds to Geneva, uncovering links to cosmetics companies. With this lead, Crystal investigates executive Leonard Sipp, who admits Dyad has been using his products for secret drug testing. At Revival, Susan and Ira secretly plot against PT, but Coady suddenly reappears and complicates matters. Soon after, Ira frees Cosima, showing her proof that PT is a fraud. When Cosima reveals this to the villagers, they revolt and burn the compound. Amid the chaos, Coady kills Susan, while Cosima and Charlotte escape by boat. Elsewhere, Rachel recalls her childhood, when she was treated as property rather than a person, raised only for experiments. Now, she mirrors the same treatment toward Kira, planning to harvest her eggs for Neolution's research. Meanwhile, Cosima and her allies uncover the truth that PT Westmorland is actually John Patrick Matheson, a fraud who faked his death. When Rachel returns to the island, she learns she too is nothing more than a lab rat. The artificial eye she was given allows PT to spy on her every move. Shattered, she drinks heavily while quietly plotting. Though she drugs Kira, she does not hand her over. Instead, she delivers her to Sarah, Mrs. S, and Art before leaving on her own. In one final act of defiance against PT, Rachel gouges out her eye, severing his control. Rachel, still recovering, wakes up in a hotel room with Ferdinand. Meanwhile, Charlotte, Kira, and Art are safely hiding somewhere else. Cosima and Delphine also uncover Neolution's true global plan, which is to force DNA collection worldwide, selling exclusive gene therapies to the wealthy while sterilizing the rest of humanity. Soon, Mrs. S secretly allies with Delphine and Rachel to bring the truth to light. Rachel provides a memory stick she claims holds incriminating evidence and instructs Ferdinand to present it to the board, but it's a trap. Gunfire erupts at the scene and Ferdinand narrowly escapes. At Felix's art show, the sisters attend in disguise, but tragedy strikes when Helena is betrayed by Gracie. Visiting her at the convent, Gracie arrives with Neolution soldiers, having secretly sided with Coady. They capture Helena and Gracie is shot in the chaos. In the end, Ferdinand confronts Mrs. S. Though he fatally wounds her, she uses her last strength to strike back, ensuring both of them die together. Helena has been captured by Neolution under Dr. Coady. Restrained, she drifts into memories of her childhood in a Ukrainian convent, where she endured abuse until a man named Thomas rescued her. Meanwhile, Sarah and the others mourn Mrs. S's death. At the wake, Sister Irina from the convent hands Sarah Helena's journal and reveals she has been taken. They immediately know Coady is behind it. At Dyad, the frail and desperate PT Westmorland pressures Coady to induce Helena's labor early so he can harvest her unborn twin's stem cells. Helena resists, but her restraints leave her powerless. Sarah and her allies devise a plan to deceive PT, disguising Sarah as Rachel. But Westmorland sees through this and attempts to kill her. Before he can, Coady interrupts, noticing Helena is bleeding out and in need of a transfusion. With this, Sarah is forced to donate her blood to save her sister. Helena survives and savagely kills Coady, but her water breaks soon after, signaling her labor has begun. Sarah helps Helena escape Dyad while she's in labor as alarms blare. Art soon joins them, but Coady corners Helena and forces Art to assist. Using a screwdriver, Helena kills Coady while Sarah finishes off PT. With their help, Helena delivers healthy twin boys, later naming them Arthur and Donnie. In the days that follow, the sisters' lives begin to settle. Cosima and Delphine, armed with a secret list of 274 Leda clones provided by Rachel, embark on a mission to cure them worldwide. Alison and Donnie return to domestic life, while Helena fully embraces motherhood. Sarah, however, wrestles with her identity and motherhood, even skipping her high school exam. Despite their struggles, the sisters gather to catch up every now and then. Helena opens her journal, which she named Orphan Black, and the family moves forward in freedom.